Right, so there is a lot going on in AEW right now, from drama in and out of the ring and different situations that I feel are getting out of hand from within the company, to the 3 shows that they've ran in the last week and all the big changes that is going on in AEW right now. I just need to discuss everything going on in the world of All Elite Wrestling, because there's a lot. There was Collision last night, there was Dynamite the night before, and this past Saturday there was also Full Gear, which I know was nearly a week ago, but I did promise that I would discuss it for a video, so I will touch on it briefly here as well. So we're going to discuss all 3 of these shows, and as I said, also go over all the drama going on in AEW right now, from all the botches on these shows and the bad matches, to the current situation AEW is having with their title belt, which needs to be talked about. And then there's the C2 also beginning on these shows, so much like I said, so like this video, and let's just get straight into it, man. Code Top 10 Wrestling on Fortnite. But yeah, AEW Full Gear took place this last Saturday, and I did of course promise that I would make a video reviewing Full Gear, but after the show took place, I just didn't really feel like making a video on it. The show was good, I'll talk about it here briefly, but I just didn't feel as though it was a video that I could really get a full, near 20 minutes of content out of like I usually do for my videos. But yeah, just going through each match very briefly, it opened the show with the CMLL World Trios titles as they did the pyro during the match gimmick once again, as it overran from the pre-show, which I do like that gimmick, but they shouldn't overuse it. The CMLL team of El Sky Team, Mascara Dorada, Mystico and Neon retained their titles over the Don Callis family here as the tension between Okada and Takeshita continues to broil. Then Pac and Darby Allin had the true opener of the show, with Pac picking up the win over Darby Allin in a really fun, exciting, high-paced match here. I'm hopeful that after the Continental Classic that Pac and Darby Allin are both in, as well as other Death Riders members Mox and Claudio. I hope Darby and the Death Riders can just go their separate ways already, for the love of God. Then we had the 4-way women's tag with Mina and Tony, the Timeless Love Bombs, against Babes of Wrath, which are Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, against Marina Shafir and Megan Bayne, and the Sisters of Sin of Julia Hart and Sky Blue. 4-way tag action, like I said, with an interesting stipulation. Of course, all 4 of these teams are semi-finalists in the women's tag title tournament, and in this 4-way match here, the winning team gets to pick their stipulation for their semi-final match. Me personally, I don't get why they didn't just make this 4-way tag be the finals and be the title match. At least it would get it on pay-per-view. Or you could have done like both semi-finals on the Saturday Tailgate Brawl, and then on the main card you could have done the finals or something like that. That could have been a fun gimmick. But yeah, instead we got this kind of nothing 4-way tag. It wasn't the worst, it wasn't really great either, it was just what it was, as the Timeless Love Bombs pick up the win and they reveal their stipulation this coming Wednesday on Dynamite, which we'll obviously get to as well. And then in the potential match of the night, FTR up against Brodido for their tag titles, the AEW tag belts. This, like I said, really fun match. Brodido were absolutely incredible tag champions, but they're back in the hands of FTR, who are as consistent as ever. I really did enjoy this tag match here, and yeah, we've got ourselves new AEW World Tag Champions. Then there was the Casino Gauntlet for the national title. Number 1 and 2 are Bobby and Shelton. Number 3 was Ricochet, as the GOA would then attack Bobby and Shelton and leave them out for most of the match, while the other entrants would come out, those being Wheeler Yuta, Roderick Strong, Orange Cassidy, Speedball and Kevin Knight, Daniel Garcia, Claudio, Mark Davis, and Matt Menard, I believe was everyone in there. So yeah, a pretty decent field, and in my opinion, this was AEW's best Casino Gauntlet, because everyone got their individual moment, and there was some really great stories being told within the match, and really great interactions. Earlier Casino Gauntlets kind of felt like they were more reliant on the surprise entrant pops and the novelty of this new stipulation, whereas this felt like a really good, fully evolved form of the Casino Gauntlet. Like I said, everyone got their individual shine and stories, and Ricochet, like I predicted, picked up the win, and he is your first inaugural AEW National Champion. Kyle O'Reilly and Jon Moxley had their no-holds-barred match. I thought this was a pretty fun match as well. It was very blood-heavy though, right out the gate, as a fork was involved from the very first seconds of this match. Both men are obviously covered in blood by the end of it, but Kyle O'Reilly taps out Mox after giving him a receipt back with the fork eventually. And yeah, this was a great match, great story. Kyle O'Reilly with the big win. We move straight from that into another no holds barred or no disqualification match, that being Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher. This match went the longest on the show. I believe this is their 6th contest against each other. Yeah, it's an epic match obviously, but I did think 2 weapons matches in a row was quite a strange choice, and I thought in general the show pacing and the show match order was a bit of an odd choice. But what works, I guess, as this match I really just want this feud to end between Briscoe and Fletcher. It's been going on for so long. I appreciate the fact that they're long rivals and they've had multiple matches against each other, and they are very good, and it's an unexpected rivalry that worked well in terms of the chemistry in the ring, but let's get these guys away from each other. Matter of fact, can we please just get the conglomeration away from the Don Callis family as a whole? That has been TV for a year straight now. The stipulation in this one is if Briscoe lost, he would have to join the Don Callis family, so I really wanted him to win, because that would mean if he joined the Don Callis family, this would be going on for even longer. He did of course pick up the win in a spot heavy match that has the crowd absolutely bumping and humping and going crazy. So yeah, Briscoe is your new TNT champion. He doesn't have to join the Don Callis family. However, this was the 6th match, like I said, and I believe it's 3-3 now. So there's just no way they unfortunately don't do another one of these to complete the best of 7. It is what it is, man. Then we had the Elite Law Trios match of Josh Alexander and the Young Bucks against the Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega. The main story of this match is the Young Bucks are trying to be recruited to the Don Callis family by Don Callis, but Josh Alexander and other members of the Don Callis family don't seem to get along with the Young Bucks. I do not care about Elite Law. I simply refuse to believe there are real people that do care about Elite Law anymore. This has been going on for years, and to me, it is just as egregious as the constant bloodline storylines going on. This should have all been packed up and done with in 2022, but here we are at the end of 2025 still doing this. As the Broke Bucks do win this one, they win their $1 million, but they throw it away to save Kenny Omega post-match. So what was the point of the entire match? Or the entire Broke Bucks lore and storyline they've done if they just dump the money to then get back with Kenny Omega anyway, unexplained. But yeah, I guess they're back together, and Elite Law is here to stay, as it's going to be them 3 against the Don Callis family now, I assume. At the very least, if they can get the conglomeration away from the Don Callis family, I'll take that. Next up, co-main event action for the AEW Women's World title. Chris Statlander up against Mercedes Moné, defending her belt against Moné, the 3rd time that these two have faced each other. Obviously the first 2 Moné won as she retained her TBS title over Stat, but this is only for Stat's Women's World title now, and this was my match of the night. To me, I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was a very good one as always from these two. They had a very sleepy, annoying, dead crowd at the start, but very similarly to their first 2 matches, they had them very hooked and completely into this one by the end of it. Some great spots in this match, a great babyface performance from Stat, who is selling the ribs, and after a series of reversals, Stat reverses the Moné Maker and gets her finish to pick up the win here over Mercedes Moné. This match got the time it deserved. It went 23 minutes, and it was fantastic. Match of the night once again. I'll say it every time about Mercedes Moné, her belt gimmick might be a bit divisive and questionable at times, but she always delivers when she's in the ring. That is undeniable. And this needs to be the start of the CEO empire being toppled. She's lost to Chris Statlander here. In my opinion, this is the moment to start getting the belts to slowly trickle down and be dropped. And then the main event of the show was a very controversial main event. It was the steel cage match for the AEW World title, Samoa Joe versus Adam Page. Interestingly enough, outside of the women's tag and the half opener, half pre-show match, this match was the shortest match on the card at 16 minutes, which is surprising for the main event match. But I like it that way. More of this, please. Not every match needs to be a 20-minute plus barn burner. But yeah, this probably had the most unpredictable moment of the entire night, with Samoa Joe winning and defeating Adam Page to win the AEW World title with the help from Hook, which is crazy to say in big 2025. Listen, I actually like Hook. A lot of AEW fans have kind of lost their faith in Hook though, and him being involved in the main event scene is definitely very abrupt, and for him to be the one ending a world title reign, nah man, come on. But I'm completely welcoming of Samoa Joe winning the AEW World title. I think Adam Page's reign was kind of what it was, to be honest. It was a pretty short transitional one, if anything, but I could totally see him winning it back. I could totally see him being the very next champion once again. I think AEW's weekly shows needed a shake-up and a new figurehead at the very top of it, and a new heel group to kind of run the shows and the ops. I think is a great way to do it. I'm very welcoming of Samoa Joe as the new AEW World Champion. But yeah, after the match, there was some post-match stuff with Swerve Strickland, who makes his return back to AEW and is seemingly going to be standing side by side with Adam Page against the Ops now. But yeah, a big babyface to get back inside of Swerve Strickland, and that definitely feels like why they've given the belt to a top heel now in Samoa Joe, because now Swerve has a purpose and he's not just left third-wheeling a Hangman Samoa Joe feud, which he probably would be if Hangman was still the champion. In terms of rating for this show, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed this one from top to bottom. There wasn't a bad match. There was only matches that I didn't really care about, like the Elite Law Trios and the Women's 4-Way Tag. Yeah, favorite match of the night was probably Mercedes Moné against Chris Statlander, followed closely by FTR against Brodito, and I have a lot of time for that Pac versus Darby Allin match as well. But yeah, definitely a lot of intrigue going into AEW TV this week with a whole new AEW World Champion and top guy in the company. So yeah, let's get straight into AEW TV for this week, starting off with AEW Dynamite Thanksgiving Eve edition. And AEW TV for this week and for the next few weeks, in fact, is not just getting a big shakeup from the new World Champion, but also because it's the start of the Continental Classic. As the groups for this year are: the Gold League is Okada, Kyle Fletcher, Darby Allin, Kevin Knight, Pac, and Mike Bailey, whereas the Blue League is Claudio Castagnoli, Orange Cassidy, Jon Moxley, Mascara Dorada, Konosuke Takeshita, and Roderick Strong. And yeah, pretty strong lineups in my opinion. I think the only issue I have is that I would have liked to see maybe one less Death Riders member in there. I don't think there needs to be 3, but that's really my only qualm with it. Well, actually, I do have one major problem with this tournament. In fact, one very big problem with now the entirety of AEW, that being that this tournament is only going to be for Kazuchika Okada's Continental belt, which is an interesting choice because Okada is obviously both the Continental and the International champion, which then turned into the Unified belt, which seemed to be 3 different belts, but obviously the Unified belt only exists if you're holding both. It is just dumb. They should have just had the Unified belt by itself. And yeah, the commentary made a point that Okada was only carrying his international title because the Continental one has been relinquished, as it's on the line in this tournament now, and we just don't need more men's singles belts. We just introduced the national title. So what, now we have a Continental title, an international title, and a national title? What is the point? That on top of the World and TNT belts. That's 5 men's singles titles in AEW. What is the need? Yeah, I thought they had a very easy layup with the Continental and international titles being unified all that time ago with Okada and Omega's match, but they just chose not to do it, and we're back to square one again now with 5 singles belts. But anyway, the first match of the Continental Classic and the first match of this Thanksgiving Eve AEW Dynamite is a C2 Gold League match. It's Okada against Kyle Fletcher. They're rematching after Fletcher beat him last year in the tournament. It goes without saying this was a good opener. In fact, a very good opener, one of the best matches across the 3 AEW shows that I'm reviewing in this video. And yeah, I didn't actually agree with Kyle Fletcher beating Okada in last year's tournament, but him winning here, I do agree with, as I just spoiled there. He did indeed beat Kazuchika Okada to pick up the first win and first set of points in the Continental Classic this year. Obviously, a big story of this C2 is Okada and Takeshita's little feud they have going on. I think a lot of people assume that because they're in separate groups, that's going to be the big final. But I saw other people suggest that Kyle Fletcher, another member of the Don Callis family, should sneakily just win this tournament while Okada and Takeshita have their own problems, and I think that's pretty interesting, and maybe that could be working towards that. Yeah, like I said, I didn't agree with Fletcher winning last year, but this year I do, because it opens up a lot of avenues in this tournament. I believe Okada could even make a comeback still and still win and make it to the finals of this tournament potentially. After that, Can you guess what we get backstage? Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks Elite Lore segment. Yay, more of this, more elite melodrama that once again, I just refuse to believe there are real people that still care about this. We then get a recap of a Mark Briscoe promo from Full Gear right after his victory over Kyle Fletcher. Obviously you might ask, why isn't he on the show as the new champion? Well, he is the TNT champion and Collision is the TNT show which he does appear on, so I will excuse AEW on that. Usually that is a pet peeve of mine. But then we go to AEW Women's World Tag Title Tournament semi-final action. The Babes of Wrath of Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale up against the Sisters of Sin of Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Overall, this match was a pretty not great one, I must say. I like all the people in this match, but I think this was a bit sloppy and awkward at times. And Julia Hart, who I don't want to single out and who I am a really big fan of, I do enjoy Julia Hart's work, I felt was kind of off form in this match, and her moonsault was just not very good in this one. As you can see, she kind of lands on the floor then bounces onto them. I feel like I've seen Julia Hart mess up that moonsault a few times now. Listen, there's nothing wrong with just scrapping the move. I don't see why she needs to keep doing it if it's not being done correctly. But yeah, the Babes of Wrath do pick up the win, which means now with the Sisters of Sin out, that's the only two original teams that are out of the tournament, which a lot of people seem to have a problem with. And don't get me wrong, I like Ty J, I like the Sisters of Sin, but to me, I think Babes of Wrath were a very obvious finalist from the moment that they won their match. I like the Sisters of Sin and the Triangle of Madness as a trio. I think they have one of the best gimmicks, one of the best looks and presentations in the entire company, but they are in no way the top team in this tournament, so I wasn't really expecting them to see them make it far. However, I wouldn't have been surprised if they won this match at the same time. But yeah, Babes of Wrath in the final, as either way we move on from that into Samoa Joe and the Ops, who are being interviewed by Tony Schiavone as the new AEW World Champion. I also completely forgot that he's also the Trios Champion, so he's a double champion. That's awesome. It then cuts to backstage where it shows Swerve Strickland arriving with Prince Nana, and then he's joined by Hangman Adam Page, as Joe isn't fazed by this and he continues to talk as these two seemingly are walking really slowly to the ring, with eventually the music hitting and they come out. Members of the Ops Dojo surround the ring, and then Hook comes out and enters the ring as he's introduced. He cuts a promo and it's just not a great promo whatsoever. It kind of drags a bit. I don't think Hook really needed mic time here, but it is what it is. Of course, this finally ends with a big brawl with Swerve and Hangman laying waste to the Ops Dojo members who are just a bunch of jobbers. The Ops look on from the ramp as Swerve and Hangman stand tall. To be honest, I'm not sure how I actually do feel about Swerve and Hangman teaming up with each other. I think it's a cool visual, but I also think that it's maybe a bit too soon, and I know that's mad to say because they've not faced each other for about a year or so, but with how much of a blood feud they were in, I think 1 year is just a little too soon for them to be immediately cool with each other and now teaming up. C2 Blue League action up next, Jon Moxley up against Mascara Dorada. This was a fine match as well. I thought not the best C2 match of the night, but yeah, it's matches like this why I ultimately like the C2, because it's two different styles facing off on each other in just a no BS match with no one at ringside. Just good wrestling. Moxley picks up the win and picks up 3 points in the Blue League as he celebrates with Marina Shafir after the match, but they are interrupted by timeless Toni Storm. Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa are facing Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir in the Women's Tag Title Tournament semi-finals, so Toni Storm cuts a great promo as she always does. She talks about Moxley and Marina Shafir in this one, runs them down. It's cool to see Toni Storm and Jon Moxley in the same ring interacting with each other. Those are just two characters that would just never meet up in any other context. And Toni Storm reveals that the stipulation she is choosing for her semi-final match will be a hardcore holiday death match taking place next week. Looking forward to that one, as we then cut backstage as Women's World Champion Chris Statlander is being interviewed by Renee Paquette, and she talks about being only the second person to pin Monet, and just talks about the match with Mercedes Moné, and I think we can get a little more than a backstage promo from the women's champion after a big pay-per-view win. This is a constant problem I have with AEW. They have their wrestlers pick up a huge victory on the pay-per-view, and then on the very next TV show, they're either not there at all or just doing something completely inconsequential and nothing. C2 Gold action up next. Kevin Knight versus Darby Allin in what I think was my favorite C2 match across both Dynamite and Collision this week. Good high-paced, high-octane offense from these two guys. Kevin Knight is the future of AEW for sure. I think this tournament could really make him, and I think it was a really great booking decision to give him the win here over Darby Allin. Darby is a guy who has proved time and time again that the losses to him really don't matter to his character or in-ring work or how the fans perceive him, so a great choice to give Kevin Knight the win here. A great upset to start this tournament off. Eddie Kingston gives some words in a backstage promo as he challenges Shibata for the Thanksgiving Collision tomorrow, which of course does end up taking place. We'll talk about that. And the main event match is Gold League action, Claudio Castagnoli versus Orange Cassidy. This is a match that for some reason I was under the impression had happened so many times before, but I found out that this is actually only their second singles match against each other. I was really convinced this match had happened loads of times, and it ended up being the match I was least excited for in this tournament because of that, but they've literally only faced each other in singles action twice. I guess they've just been within each other's vicinities so many times within their groups that it felt like they'd faced each other many times before, but no, I was wrong. It was a fine main event, probably the worst C2 match of the night. Like I said though, it wasn't bad, it was fine. Claudio Castagnoli does pick up the win over Orange Cassidy. I probably would have had Orange pick up the win here. It feels like he's been losing a lot recently since he returned. But yeah, that's how we close AEW Dynamite. Overall, a very solid night of wrestling. I'd give this show a 7.25 out of 10. I think the only real low points were the women's tournament tag title match, and just the entire fiasco in AEW with all the belts is just really annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Can we just please sort out this continental, international, unified situation? It's just annoying. But anyway, it's time for AEW Collision now, as I believe this might be my first just full AEW Collision review. I've done obviously reviews of the long AEW Dynamite Collision combined episodes, but a singular episode of Collision, I believe this is the first time I'm reviewing it, and that's only because it was on a Thursday. Because no way am I spending my Sundays reviewing a Collision if it's on a Saturday, hell no, but if it's on Thursday, sure, we can fit it into my AEW video, why not? But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everyone who celebrates. I hope you all stuffed yourself down with some fat scran, some great food, and enjoyed whatever was on the telly in typical Thanksgiving style. Maybe even watched AEW Collision, but this show opens with Gold League action for the C2. It's Pac up against Mike Bailey. A really fun match from these two here, which isn't very surprising. Their two styles really combined together well in this one, and they ultimately had the match of the night for this Thanksgiving Collision episode. Pac wins a great contest by referee's decision. I could be wrong, but is this the first time a C2 match has ended by referee stoppage before in AEW? Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, Pac picks up the win, and the Death Riders are on the board across both leagues. Speaking of the Death Riders, we get more action from them up next, as is Daniel Garcia up against his former 2.0 friend Daddy Magic, aka Matt Menard. This is something I feel like should have been a lot more and a lot bigger of a deal in Daniel Garcia's journey. However, they just waited too long to get around to finally doing something with Daddy Magic and Daniel Garcia. I thought the match was mostly kinda dull at times. It was fine for bits of it too, but like I said, it just felt like it should have been a bigger match for both guys, as Daddy Magic is bleeding throughout this one and passes out after Daniel Garcia chokes him out. It was fine, like I said, just kind of dull at times and felt a bit lifeless, and it kind of felt like it deserved better in my opinion. It would have been a lot more effective to do this much sooner after Daniel Garcia joined the Death Riders rather than months later like this, and also not announcing it just one day in advance on Dynamite and giving it a bit of a proper build. Even just next week on Dynamite or Collision would have been way more effective than just throwing it on the Thanksgiving Collision here. Then we get an FTR in-ring promo who are celebrating their new title win. I don't get why we can't get stuff like this with Chris Statlander, as FTR are interrupted by the Bang Bang Gang, who of course beat them recently on FTR's way to winning the tag belt, so I'm glad that they're actually addressing that and making sure that Bang Bang Gang get their deserved title opportunity. And it's good to see a newly crowned champion getting straight into another program and new storyline. Once again, I would like to see this for Chris Statlander or anyone else on the roster. As we then move on to the MXM TV casting call, it's just an open challenge with Mansoor, Mason Madden, Taya Valkyrie, and Johnny TV. I do enjoy all four of these people, I like all of them, but I'm kind of a bit bored of the constant open challenge gimmicks. First we had the Max Caster, Best Wrestler Alive Open Challenge, and now we've got this. It just feels like its spiritual successor. And this match is answered by Dalton Castle and the Outrunners. Obviously, Dalton Castle and Johnny TV had a feud in Ring of Honor. I don't know why I said of course, like anyone is gonna know that. It's nice to see Dalton back in the mix, but this was a total filler segment. This match only went 2.5 minutes as Dalton Castle and the Outrunners completely dominated. Maybe keep the MXM TV Open Challenge / casting call or whatever it's called to Ring of Honor. But it seems as though this was done, as after the match, Ricochet comes out and cuts a promo on Dalton Castle, and the Gates of Agony use this distraction to attack him and the Outrunners. So it looks like we're getting Ricochet versus Dalton Castle for the national belt at Final Battle, I'm guessing. As next up on the card is Eddie Kingston up against Katsuyori Shibata. This is another match I kind of expected more out of, and it was also a lot shorter than I thought it would go. It only went just over 7 minutes. Kingston and Shibata have worked each other before in AEW, and I remember really enjoying that match, but Kingston, since he returned back from injury, just hasn't really been the same in the ring. There's been talk amongst AEW fans that he's phoning it in or doesn't care anymore, and I think in terms of the in-ring work, obviously his injury has held him back. He isn't going to work the same, but I was definitely less than inspired by his microphone work since he came back to AEW. He didn't know the names of anything. He was openly asking on camera during promos what the name of the show is that he's about to challenge someone for. But after beating Shibata here, he cuts an impassioned promo on Samoa Joe, and it really felt like the old Eddie Kingston. This was the best of Eddie Kingston since he returned. Not the match, but the post-match promo was brilliant. I hope him and Samoa Joe can have a decent match, a decent brawl. I wonder how that's going to go, because surely that's going to happen if Eddie Kingston is challenging him here. And I imagine Kingston will get involved with Hangman and Swerve, and they'll be the trio to take on the Ops or something like that. I think that is probably the direction right now. As we then get a Red Velvet promo backstage. Nice to see her back on AEW TV again after losing to Mercedes Moné, as she challenges Mercedes Moné back for the Ring of Honor Women's TV belt, and that rematch is confirmed for Final Battle. So yeah, AEW loading up Final Battle with AEW stars. We've got Mercedes Moné and Ricochet now. Methinks that they're trying to get Ring of Honor a TV deal push once again. Next up though is women's action. It's Ty Mello up against Thekla. I really hate to say it because I like both of these girls, but this was the worst match across all 3 shows that I'm reviewing in this video, and it's really not even close. Ty Mello is someone I'm a fan of, but she was really off it today, really off form. Someone backstage needs to tell her to stop adjusting her hair after every bump and to sell it instead. After she does finally tie her hair up, the match fully gets a lot better, like I'm not even kidding, as the last couple of minutes were actually okay, with Tekla picking up the win after a spear and a stomp. The last couple of minutes were good, but yeah, not good at all before that. Easily the worst match across both 3 shows. Both 3? What the hell did I just say there? I'm leaving that in. After the match, the Sisters of Sin look to attack Mello, but Jamie Hayter makes the save. It sounded like I was saying they're about to attack Carmelo Hayes, but no, I'm talking about Ty. It looks like Jamie Hayter is then going to get jumped by the Triangle of Madness, but then Statlander makes the save. So I was wrong. Statlander does get something, at least on the show, as it seems as though the direction is going to be her and Tekla, which I think is a good direction to go in. Tekla was of course part of the winning Blood and Guts team, and Chris Statlander needs a top heel to face. Interestingly though, there was no Anna Jay in sight or to be seen in this segment. Of course, she is the partner of Ty Mello. However, recently there's been talks that her contract is coming up, so interesting that she's not here on TV now. I wonder what's going on with that. And the main event of this one is Takeshita against Roderick Strong. Not gonna lie, I did expect a bit more of this match. I was really thinking this was gonna be the top match maybe across both 3 shows. It was just fine though. This is a Blue League match for the Continental Classic, if I didn't mention already, and Konosuke Takeshita does get the win, defeating Roderick Strong in this one. So now he's got more points than Okada. Obviously that's the big story beat. But that ends about nearly 10 hours worth of wrestling across the last week, from Full Gear to the Thanksgiving Eve Dynamite to the Thanksgiving Collision. AEW put on some pretty solid programming in my opinion. For Collision, I'd probably give it like a 6.5, maybe a 6.25 out of 10. I thought the opener was the best part, and I thought it was a bit downhill after that, particularly with the women's match. I think Kingston Shibata was a bit uninspiring, and so was Garcia versus Matt Menard. And of course, there was that jobber segment too, so there was just a whole lot of nothing between the C2 opener and the C2 main event, in my opinion. Yeah, 6.25 out of 10 I'll probably give that, and the AEW Dynamite I'd give a 7.25 to a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, so much going on in AEW right now with the world title direction and Samoa Joe being the champion and Hook being involved. A lot of controversy with that amongst AEW fans, and what's controversial for me, amongst me and my head, and it's just living in my head rent free, is the current title belt situation in AEW, which just continues to annoy me. There's just too many belts in the men's singles division. There is no need for there to be 5 ever, like literally ever. But yeah, solid week of programming. Full Gear was good, Dynamite was good, Collision was it was alright, I guess. Lots going on next week on AEW programming, as next week they are in Indiana and we're getting more C2 action with Pac and Okada, Fletcher and Knight, Claudio and Moxley facing each other, and there's that women's tag title tournament hardcore death match, of course. I'm not going to be reviewing AEW Dynamite and Collision every week. I just thought I'd come in here because there's a lot going on in AEW right now to discuss, and I did promise that I would discuss Full Gear as well, so as an excuse to fit it in here and just discuss everything going on in AEW right now. I think the next time I discuss AEW TV and just review an AEW TV show will be when AEW comes to Manchester, because I'm actually going to be in attendance for that show, the first time I'm going to an AEW weekly show live, so maybe it'll be a different experience and I'll talk about it then. But for now, that's it from me. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of all 3 of these AEW shows and my thoughts on the shows. Do you think I'm being too generous, too harsh on them? Do you think I'm completely stupid and in the wrong and a dumb WWE or AEW fanboy? Let me know in the comments, man. Like and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a video on the Top 10 Wrestling channel. I cannot believe I've been going for nearly 31 minutes now. But yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye and keep on rolling.